They say the truth doesn't just show up one day with a confession. It leaks in slowly, like water under a door. Quiet, creeping, and almost invisible until it's soaked into everything. For me, the first drop hit the floor at a dinner party in Austin. We were at Michelle and Tom's place. Emma's college friends, now married, with an aggressively Pinterest-style home and a new baby they hadn't stopped talking about for 2 hours straight. The kind of people who only drink wine if it has a story and cost more than groceries. Emma and I hadn't been out together in a while, and I think we both welcomed the chance to pretend everything was normal again. Emma looked radiant, honestly. There's no denying that. She wore this navy dress I hadn't seen before. Tight at the waist, just enough shimmer in the fabric to catch the light. When we arrived, people greeted her like royalty, like she floated through the room on a different level. That was Emma, charisma in heels. She could tell a story about traffic and somehow make everyone lean in. And I was just Daniel, steady, supportive, mostly invisible in her glow. Dinner was halfway done. Roasted salmon, arugula salad, some complicated dessert involving lemon curd and burnt sugar, when it happened. We were laughing about something Tom said. One of those inside jokes that Emma pretended to remember better than she did. When her clutch purse, resting on the edge of her chair, tipped over and hit the floor with a soft thud. The sound itself didn't draw attention. It was the contents that did. Lip gloss rolled under the table. Her phone skittered a few inches across the hardwood. And then, as I leaned forward to help her gather everything, I saw it. A white envelope peeking out of the leather, half exposed. I picked it up and immediately noticed the logo. Hilton Downtown Austin. Inside was a hotel key card and a breakfast receipt. I don't know what made me open it. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was just acting on instinct. But I did, right there, with no sense of timing or subtlety. 2 lines. Room 914. Breakfast for 2, $48.75. Her name was on the receipt, Emma M. Carlton, signed in that looping way she always uses when she's not paying attention. And it was dated for 3 days ago. 3 days ago. I felt something in me drop like a floorboard giving out. I handed the key and receipt to her quietly, not saying anything at first. I didn't trust myself to speak. My throat went dry, and I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. Emma's face froze for just a second. Her fingers paused mid-reach. It was small, barely noticeable, but I caught it. That split second of stillness, that flicker of panic she couldn't suppress. Then came the laugh. "Oh my God," she said, rolling her eyes in exaggerated amusement as she plucked the receipt from my hand. "You've got to be kidding me. This is from my team at the office. They're pulling that stupid prank war again." People around us turned slightly, sensing some minor disruption. Emma saw it too, and turned it to her advantage. "Last week it was fake matchbooks from a strip club in my bag," she continued, now speaking loud enough for the table to hear. "And now I guess it's this." She held the receipt up like it was a prop, a punchline. "Honestly, I work with children." Chuckles. A few knowing looks. Someone clinked their wine glass against hers in mock solidarity. Then she smiled at me, that smile. The one she used when I asked questions that made her uncomfortable. The one that turned my concern into comedy. "Don't worry," she said playfully, placing a hand on my arm. "Daniel gets so jealous when this stuff happens. It's kind of adorable." The attention shifted. Everyone laughed. Someone made a joke about trust in marriage. Emma laughed again, shaking her head like I was this overly sensitive man who couldn't take a harmless joke. And me? I sat there, silent, the corners of my mouth turned up just enough to play along. Inside, I was unraveling, because I knew that wasn't a prank. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't anything close to harmless. Her team is mostly remote. She doesn't even work in an office anymore. The only time she's in Austin proper these days is when she's catching up with friends or going to yoga with Jen, which always ends with her too tired to talk and falling asleep with her back turned toward me. And breakfast for 2? That wasn't even subtle. The rest of the night moved on around me, but I wasn't really there. I laughed in the right places, I nodded when people spoke to me. I poured Emma a glass of wine when she nudged my elbow. But something had shifted, like my mind had detached, hovering a few inches above the moment. She kept touching me in that performative way, hand on my thigh, leaning into my shoulder, kissing my cheek a little too deliberately when someone was watching. I should have felt comforted by it. I used to, but now it just felt like damage control. Later, in the car, she brought it up casually. "I swear, they're going to get me fired if they keep this up," she said, tossing the key card into the center console with a theatrical sigh. "You weren't mad, were you? You seemed quiet." I kept my eyes on the road. "No, it just caught me off guard." "I figured," she said with a soft laugh. "But seriously, babe, it's nothing. You know, I'd tell you if there was anything to worry about." It was that last sentence that did it, the casual assurance, the we *p *nized int *macy. "I'd tell you if there was anything to worry about." But there was something to worry about, because for the first time since we met, I didn't believe her. And maybe worse, I realized she knew I didn't. She didn't press it after that. Just shifted the conversation to vacation plans, asked if I still wanted to go to Portland in the fall, and scrolled through Instagram for most of the ride home. Her phone buzzed a few times. She didn't check the messages. When we got back to the house, she said she had a headache and went straight to bed. I stayed in the living room for a while, sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing in particular. The silence in the house felt heavier than usual, like the walls had soaked up what I wasn't saying. I kept thinking about that receipt, the total, the room number, her signature, the way her hand trembled for a heartbeat before she slipped the smile on. That was the moment. That's when I knew. Not everything, but enough. The first obvious sign had fallen right out of her purse. And instead of coming clean, she turned it into theater. She made it into my insecurity, my mistake, my reaction. That night I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers or accusations. I just lay awake beside her, listening to the soft, even rhythm of her breathing, and stared up at the ceiling. I used to believe that love meant trust. But in that moment, I realized trust could also be a blindfold. And Emma? Emma had learned how to tie it tighter than I ever noticed. After that night in Austin, I started noticing everything. I didn't want to, I really didn't. I told myself it was just a weird coincidence. That maybe, just maybe, Emma was telling the truth. But once doubt takes root, it doesn't let go quietly. It spreads. And every little thing that once felt normal starts to feel like a clue. The first thing I realized was how often she was working late. I used to admire her work ethic. She'd always been passionate about her job, project manager at a fast-moving marketing firm. That meant deadlines, campaigns, and plenty of pressure. I never questioned the extra hours. But now I started tracking them. Not with suspicion, exactly, more like curiosity with sharp edges. Monday, the team's behind, I have to stay. Thursday, client call ran over, I'll eat downtown. Saturday, I might swing by the office for a bit. Who goes to the office on a Saturday? Then there were the passwords. One morning I picked up her iPad, wanting to check a recipe she'd bookmarked weeks ago. It asked for a passcode. That was new. We never kept passwords from each other. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, even her old phone PIN. Nothing worked. When I brought it up later, carefully, like tiptoeing around broken glass, she laughed. "Oh, I changed it because of a work security thing. We had this phishing scare, remember? I have to change everything now." She kissed my cheek and called me sweet for worrying. It made sense. Sort of. But then her phone started living face down. On the counter. On the couch. In the car. Always screen down, like it was trained not to look me in the eye. Notifications were suddenly silenced. The buzzing, though constant. I'd hear it while we were watching a movie, while we were eating dinner, while she was in the shower. And every time it buzzed, she picked it up and walked out of the room. I started to pay attention to her errands. Grocery runs that took 2 hours and returned with half the list missing. Gym sessions that left her with no sweat and no towel in the bag. Brunch with the girls that ended without a single Instagram story, which was a red flag in itself. Emma loved posting brunch. It was her personal religion. There were cash withdrawals, too. I found one while reconciling our bank account. Not because I was snooping, but because the numbers weren't adding up. We used cards for everything. We hadn't touched an ATM in months. Suddenly there was $200 here, $60 there, spaced just far enough apart to avoid suspicion, but not far enough for me to ignore. I asked her once, casually, what she used cash for. She blinked, like she had to remember which story to tell. Oh, just tips. Valet stuff. Small things. Then she added, "You'd be surprised how many places still prefer cash." Sure. Except we don't go to those places. I started noticing smells, too. Specifically, his cologne. I don't wear cologne. Never have. But after she'd take the car out, I'd sit down and catch the faint trace of something musky. Expensive. Not perfume, definitely male. I knew it wasn't from me. The first time I caught it, I told myself maybe it was from a rideshare. Maybe someone else sat there before me. But the scent came back. Again. And again. I brought it up once, lightly, half joking. "You been picking up handsome strangers in the car lately?" I asked, smirking. She laughed it off. "What, are you jealous?" she teased, nudging me with her elbow. "It's probably from one of my clients. I gave a guy a ride after that mixer last week. He was practically bathing in cologne." That story changed the next time I asked. Then it was, "Oh, I think that was from Michelle's husband. He sat in the front seat when we carpooled last weekend." I stopped asking. Another thing started to bug me, the driver's seat. It was never where I left it. Emma's shorter than me by a good 5 inches. When she drives, she adjusts the seat closer to the wheel. That's normal. But lately, I'd find the seat too far back, even farther than I leave it. Not dramatically, but enough that I'd have to scoot forward to reach the pedals. The first few times, I chalked it up to forgetfulness. Maybe I'd driven it last. Maybe I leaned back without noticing. But the pattern became impossible to ignore. I'd set it where I always do. She'd take the car for a quick run to the gym. And when she came back, the seat would be all wrong. I started double-checking, taking photos of the seat position before she left. Quietly, just for myself. She always denied touching it. Our social media changed, too. Emma used to post pictures of us all the time. Couple selfies, hiking trips, lazy Sunday mornings. Even the occasional, "Look what he made me for breakfast," kind of post. But those stopped cold about 2 months ago. At first, I didn't notice. Life gets busy. But when I checked her profile one evening, there wasn't a single photo of us from the last 10 weeks. In fact, she'd archived several old ones. Our anniversary post was gone. A beach photo from Cabo deleted. Her profile looked like she was single. If you didn't know her, you'd never guess she had a husband. Meanwhile, I still had her all over mine. That stung more than I expected. The next time we were out together, grabbing dinner after one of her long days, I asked if she wanted to take a photo. Just casually. The light was good, the food looked amazing. It was something we used to do. She hesitated, smiled tight. "I'm not really feeling camera ready," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Let's do one next time." There was no next time. Around this time, I started keeping track of her excuses. I wrote them down in my notes app. Not because I was planning anything, but because I felt like I was losing my mind. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining the gaps, the inconsistencies, the way her stories changed slightly every time she repeated them. Tuesday, brunch with Olivia. Thursday, late call with the Seattle client. Saturday, hot yoga with Carla. Olivia moved to Denver last month. The Seattle client? That project ended weeks ago. And Carla, her gym buddy? I ran into her at the grocery store that exact Saturday morning. She mentioned being homesick with the flu. I smiled, nodded, said nothing. It was like every excuse was borrowed from a spinning wheel of cover stories. I wanted to believe there was still a chance I was wrong, that this was all some massive misunderstanding, a stress response, a temporary shift, something that could be explained if we just sat down and talked. But every time I tried to bring it up, Emma flipped the conversation. "You're being paranoid. You're smothering me." Maybe if you stopped acting like a detective, we could actually enjoy each other's company. She was always one step ahead, cutting off the questions before they landed. And every time I walked away from those conversations, I felt smaller. Like maybe it really was me. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. The final straw in this chapter came one afternoon when I picked up her gym bag from the back seat while cleaning out the car. It was light, barely used. Inside was a protein bar, a clean towel, and a folded receipt, tucked between two hair ties. It was from a parking garage, one I didn't recognize, dated for the previous Friday. The timestamp matched her supposed yoga class. The gym she said she went to was on the east side. This garage? It was in a business district way out west. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, just holding the receipt. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt quiet, cold even, like something had clicked into place. Each of these things on their own could be explained, could be forgiven, could be chalked up to stress, coincidence, life. But taken together, they formed a pattern. A rhythm of lies that danced around the truth without ever landing on it. She wasn't just pulling away. She was disappearing, piece by piece. And I was finally starting to see the shape of the absence she left behind. There's a moment when suspicion hardens into certainty. It's like the instant water freezes, silent, invisible until suddenly solid. For me, that moment began with a small black rectangle I bought online for $49.95, a GPS tracker. I'd never imagined myself as that guy, the one hiding things in his wife's belongings, the one whose heart races at the sight of a blinking dot on a map. For weeks, I told myself it was wrong, that if I had to resort to spying, then the marriage was already over. But every new inconsistency, every shifted seat, every unexplained cash withdrawal pushed me closer to the edge. The day I finally did it, Emma was in the shower, singing softly under the steam. Her gym bag sat open on the floor by the closet. A careless heap of sneakers, a water bottle, and a folded towel that looked like it had never been used. My hands moved before my conscience could stop them. I slipped the tracker into the lining of the inner pocket, a hidden slot meant for keys or ID. It fit perfectly, silent and invisible. By the time she stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, the bag was zipped shut and back in its spot, like nothing had happened. That night, I stared at my phone long after she went to bed. The tracking app was a simple interface, just a map, a dot, and a line showing where the bag had been. When she left for yoga the next morning, my thumb hovered over the refresh icon. And there it was. Not the gym. Not anywhere near it. The dot moved steadily west, away from downtown, toward a stretch of highway lined with gas stations and warehouses. My chest tightened as it veered off onto a smaller road, one I recognized from morning commutes. A rundown strip of businesses, pawn shop, a car wash, and then, at the edge of the city, a cheap roadside motel with a flickering neon sign. Hillcrest Motor Lodge. The dot stopped. I zoomed in. Room numbers popped up on the map, tiny, sterile squares. My pulse hammered in my throat. She'd said she was at a 90-minute hot yoga class. The tracker said otherwise. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to get in the car right then, to drive to the motel and pound on the door until she answered, to demand the truth face to face. But another part, the colder, clearer part, knew that was what she'd expect. An outburst, a scene she could manipulate, another chance to flip the script and make me the problem. Not this time. Instead, I opened a second app, the camera feed for a small dash-mounted recorder I'd hidden in the glove compartment of my car the week before. It was angled just enough to catch the driver's side of the parking lot when she opened the door. I hadn't even told myself why I'd installed it. I guess now I knew. The footage loaded. My heart stopped. There she was. Emma, my wife, stepping out of the driver's seat, sunglasses on, hair pinned up in that loose way she only did on weekends. She smoothed her dress. She hadn't even bothered with gym clothes. A man waited by the door to room 7. Tall, lean, casual but expensive looking. His shirt crisp, his watch catching the sunlight. He smiled when he saw her. She smiled back, soft, Easy. Like she'd been smiling at him for years. They didn't kiss right there in the open. But the way they moved, close, comfortable, familiar, was enough. She reached for his hand as they stepped inside together. The door closed behind them. I sat back in my chair, my phone slipping slightly in my palm. The room around me felt distant, like I was underwater. For months I'd been living in a fog of doubt, clinging to scraps of excuses and coincidences. Now the fog was gone. In its place was a clear, hard truth. She wasn't just pulling away. She was with someone else. I watched the dot on the map stay in the same place for nearly 2 hours. She had told me she'd grab lunch with a friend after yoga. Around 1:40 p.m. The dot moved again, back toward downtown, tracing a neat line across the map like nothing had happened. The footage showed her leaving the room alone, hair a little mussed, sunglasses back on, expression unreadable. The man didn't follow right away. He stayed inside for another 15 minutes, then emerged with his shirt untucked and keys in hand. She arrived home at 3:10 p.m., carrying the gym bag. Traffic was insane, she said, tossing her phone onto the counter. How was your morning? She kissed my cheek, quick, perfunctory, and went upstairs to shower. I just stood there, staring at the bag she'd dropped by the door. The same bag that had carried the tracker, the receipt, the lies. It looked so ordinary. How could something so small carry something so heavy? That evening, I sat on the couch scrolling back through the footage. Every movement of hers felt like a betrayal I'd been too blind to see. The way she laughed with him in the parking lot. The casual ease of it. The absence of shame. This wasn't a one-time slip or a crisis of conscience. This was routine, practiced, comfortable, not a mistake, a second life. The app showed a history of locations. Tuesday morning, same motel. Last Friday, same motel. 2 weeks before, same motel. Different times. Always yoga. Always brunch. Always an excuse. I started matching these pings to her texts, her receipts, her stories. They lined up like a puzzle snapping into place. Gym bag. Cash withdrawals. Disabled location sharing. Archived Instagram posts. Every strange detail suddenly made sense. Like the moment you see the hidden image in a magic eye picture and can't unsee it. I didn't feel rage, at least not then. I felt clarity. Terrible, quiet clarity. The kind that doesn't shout but whispers. This is who she really is. When she came downstairs that night, she was barefoot, hair damp from her second shower of the day. She sat across from me at the table, scrolling through her phone, humming softly. She didn't look like someone carrying a secret. She looked like Emma, the same woman who used to curl up next to me on the couch and plan our future. The same woman who told me I was her safe place. Now she was building a second life right on top of the first, like a house with a hidden room I hadn't noticed for years. She caught me looking at her and smiled. "What?" she said, teasing. "Why are you staring at me like that?" I smiled back. "Nothing," I said, my voice steady. "Just thinking." She laughed, turning back to her phone. "You're weird sometimes, you know that?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know." I went to bed early that night. She stayed downstairs, FaceTiming someone quietly, her voice muffled through the walls. I didn't try to listen. I didn't need to. For the first time in months, I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and realized something. Suspicion is exhausting. Certainty is worse. But at least with certainty, you stop spinning in circles. You start moving forward, even if forward means walking away. I thought about confronting her right then. About waking her up in the middle of the night and putting the tracker, the footage, the receipts in front of her. About demanding answers. But a stronger voice inside me whispered, "Wait. Don't give her a chance to twist this. Don't play her game. Build your case. Build your escape." So I closed my eyes and listened to the sound of her coming up the stairs, moving quietly down the hallway, slipping into bed beside me. She smelled faintly of soap and something else. Something expensive and masculine that lingered like a ghost. She turned over and whispered, "Night, babe." Her voice soft and practiced. I didn't answer. She thought she was still safe in her secret. She thought I was still blind. But I wasn't blind anymore. I was watching, recording, learning, and for the first time since this began, I wasn't just surviving her lies. I was preparing. Once I knew, I couldn't go back to guessing. I didn't want rage or revenge. Not then. I wanted understanding. Not for closure. For proof. Because knowing something in your gut is one thing. Watching it unfold with time-stamped precision, mapped across weeks, etched into paper and pixels, that's something else entirely. I became methodical. I started with the basics, time and place. The GPS tracker I'd hidden in Emma's gym bag became my anchor. It pinged every 10 minutes, and the app logged each location with date and timestamps. I exported everything into a spreadsheet, dates down one column, locations in another, durations, timestamps, and her stated reasons for being out in the next. The patterns emerged fast. Tuesdays, spin class. Tracker pinged at Hillcrest Motor Lodge, room 12. Fridays, client lunch downtown. Location said otherwise, room 7. Saturdays, meeting Carla for yoga. Back to room 7 again. Always between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Each visit was bracketed by the same lie, the same routine. It was like clockwork. But that wasn't enough. I needed more than digital breadcrumbs. So I started digging into our joint bank accounts again, carefully, quietly. I pulled the last 3 months of statements and compared them to the location data. I noticed something that hadn't stood out before. A second pattern. ATM withdrawals, small, scattered amounts, mostly 20s and 50s. Always within 24 hours of her motel visits. I highlighted each one in yellow and started matching them to parking receipts I'd found shoved in the glove box or curled up in cup holders. The parking receipts told a story all their own. One from 3rd and Bay Lot, time-stamped exactly 30 minutes before a Hillcrest check-in. Another from Hillwood Plaza, just a block away from the motel. She had no reason to be in those areas, no office, no friends nearby, no gym. Yet there they were, aligning like tracks in the snow. The next piece came from her email. I'd never snooped before, but after everything else, my hesitation felt laughable. She used the same password for years, our dog's name plus the year we got married. I guessed it in one try. Her inbox looked clean at first, too clean. Most personal emails were deleted, but she'd forgotten about the archive folder. Or maybe she thought I'd never look. I found hotel confirmations. Not from the Hillcrest, surprisingly, but from boutique spots downtown, booked under her maiden name, Emma M. Doyle. It was a name she hadn't used since we got married. Why dig it back up now? My stomach dropped. One booking caught my eye. A suite reserved for Emma Doyle and guest at the Chandler House Hotel. 2 months ago. During a weekend she claimed she was visiting her sister in Dallas. That weekend, I remembered, she'd texted me pictures. A wine glass on a patio. A brunch table. A blurry photo of her and her sister. Faces half cut off, no landmarks in sight. Now I knew why they looked staged. They were. I reverse image searched the background in one of the *TS. It wasn't Dallas. It was the rooftop at Chandler House. She didn't go to her sister's. She spent the weekend in a boutique hotel with someone else, and made sure I had proof that she was exactly where she said she'd be. I kept going. Receipts began to appear in odd places once I looked. Tucked into her coat pocket. Stuffed into the bottom of the laundry hamper. One from a wine bar called the Violet Vine. Dated for a Thursday evening, she'd claimed she was working late. Another from a boutique perfume shop, the same brand I kept smelling in the car. She never wore it around me. I opened a fresh folder on my desktop and began organizing everything. Screensh *TS, photos, PDFs. I labeled it personal. Then I buried it inside a folder marked tax documents, which sat beside another labeled work invoices. Just in case. I didn't want to confront her. Not yet. I wanted a timeline, so I built one. It started 5 months ago, when she first mentioned a new client that required more FaceTime. I noted the first ATM withdrawal that didn't make sense. The first night she came home late and couldn't explain what they'd eaten at the restaurant. The first Instagram post she archived without reason. Each entry included the tracker ping, her excuse, any financial footprint, and what I observed: seat moved in the car, cologne smell, phone silence. I color-coded it. Red for motel visits. Yellow for cash activity. Blue for social inconsistencies. Green for confirmed lies. The entire document was 62 entries long. And that was just what I could prove. At night, I started sleeping less. Not out of stress, but because my mind was active, alert. While Emma slept beside me, face turned away, breathing slow, I lay awake adding to the archive, matching her gym visit excuses to her phone calendar. Screensh asterisk ting text threads where she couldn't talk because of a spin class. Then watching her dot blink out toward the same seedy motel instead. I even began pulling phone records from our family plan. She didn't know I had access. She was always careful to delete her call logs. But the provider's dashboard listed all incoming and outgoing activity. One number appeared more than any other. Dozens of calls. Sometimes twice in a single day. Mostly during work hours. Always brief. I ran the number through a reverse lookup site. It was registered to a man named Reed Callahan. I'd never heard the name. He wasn't in her contacts. I searched him online. Nothing jumped out. Just a LinkedIn profile with a vague job title and no photos. But that name kept coming back. Reed Callahan. The man on the footage? Maybe. But even without a face, I now had a name. A destination. Pattern. A fully fleshed out web of deception. She wasn't slipping. She wasn't confused. She wasn't broken or lost or impulsive. She was organized. Intentional. Careful. This wasn't an affair of opportunity. This was architecture. A structure of lies built brick by brick. And the more I cataloged, the clearer it became. Emma had mastered the balance of proximity and secrecy. Close enough to keep me from drifting. Distant enough to build a second version of herself behind a locked door. And every now and then, she still smiled at me across the kitchen. Still touched my shoulder when she walked by. Still said, "I love you" before bed. And it hit me it wasn't guilt driving her. It was performance. She thought she was untouchable. But I wasn't confused anymore. I was documenting, preparing, archiving. I began printing the most damning pieces. Color photographs, time logs, transaction records. I laminated some of them, not because I needed to, but because I wanted them to last. I put them in a hardbound folder. I kept a digital copy stored in an encrypted cloud account under a fake name. A second backup lived on a flash drive I taped beneath the drawer of my desk. I wasn't scared anymore. Emma thought she was the only one playing a game. But I was learning the rules. And unlike her, I played for the endgame. By the time spring rolled around, my archive was thick enough to feel like a book. 60-plus entries. Screensh asterisk TS. GPS logs. Receipts. Phone records. The more complete the picture became, the more surreal it felt. I wasn't living in a marriage anymore. I was studying a case file. Emma and I still moved around each other like a couple. Sharing meals, sharing a bed. But in my head we had become two separate timelines. The life she performed in front of me and the one she disappeared into when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd expected the next big revelation to come from my own digging. Another receipt, another tracker ping. But instead it arrived wrapped as a gift. A bachelorette weekend. Emma had mentioned it weeks earlier over dinner, casual as anything. "Madison's getting married," she said, twirling pasta on her fork. "We're doing a girls' weekend in Sedona. Just hiking, wine, spa stuff. I'll be gone 3 nights, Thursday to Sunday." She said it like she was reading off a grocery list. No big deal. Except Madison lived in Colorado, and as far as I knew, Emma hadn't seen her in over a year. She even showed me a photo of the rental house the group had booked, a desert-style villa with a hot tub and string lights over the patio. "Isn't it cute?" she asked, turning her phone toward me. "We're going to cook together, do sunrise yoga on the deck. Total girls' trip energy." I forced a smile. "Looks great," I said. Inside, my gut twisted. Every detail was exactly the kind of set piece she liked to build. Just enough specificity to sound real, just enough distance to keep me from showing up. A week before she left, one of her friends posted something on Instagram. A blurry boomerang of cocktails with the caption counting down to Sedona. Among the tagged handles was Tyler's. That stopped me cold. Tyler wasn't part of Emma's college friend group. He was a guy she knew through work. A little too charming, always joking. The type who thrived on being the fun friend. I'd met him twice at company mixers. The idea of him at a girls' weekend didn't make sense. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I started planning. I knew Emma would cover her digital tracks better this time. Location sharing still disabled, posts likely staged. But groups are messy. Someone always slips. Thursday morning, she left in a swirl of luggage and breezy chatter, hugging me at the door. "Don't forget to water the plants," she said, kissing me quickly. "I'll text when we land." I watched her Uber drive away and open the tracker app. The gym bag wasn't with her this time. It would have been too obvious. So I'd hidden a smaller GPS tag in her toiletries case the night before, the one she always carried. My stomach clenched as the dot began moving. Flight path, Phoenix. Then a rental car. Then Sedona. So far, so good. She really was where she said she'd be. By evening, she sent a group sh*T. For women clinking wine glasses on a patio. Madison, two other faces I vaguely recognized, and Emma. No Tyler. "We made it," the caption read, but the patio looked wrong. I opened Google Street View and searched the address of the rental house she'd shown me. The patio there had a stone wall and a mountain backdrop. The photo Emma posted had neither. Just a line of beige condos behind a fence. I zoomed in on a sign half-cropped at the edge of the frame. Desert View Serviced Apartments. Not a private villa. Not even close. Friday morning, the tracker showed her leaving the apartment complex and walking a block north. I followed the dot on the map. A boutique hotel, the Arroyo Suites. It wasn't a massive place, but it was upscale. Private balconies, couples massage packages, champagne at check-in. She stayed inside for 3 hours, then walked back to the apartment. That afternoon, Tyler posted on his own Instagram story. Just a few seconds of a beer glass against a Red Rock backdrop. No caption. But I recognized the railing. It was the same one from the hotel's rooftop bar. He wasn't tagged in Emma's photo, but he was there. Piece by piece, the story clicked together. The girls' trip was a smokescreen. The apartment served as a decoy, cheap enough